What's up, everybody? This is Jason G. Willikers with Willikers Presents. We are at the O'Neill Library in Mountain Brook, Alabama. We are just about to go in and talk to Ashlee Fulmer, physician turned children's book series author, about her new book series, Banjo the Gorilla. Join me on this new adventure.
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'll pass it off to you, but I am Jason of G. Willikers Presents. I'm conducting interviews of personal successes, small business owners, independent authors, and I'm happy to have you on board with me today.
Hey Jason, so good to meet you again. I guess we met a couple weeks ago in Denton, but good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I'm very excited. I'm Ashlee Fulmer. I am a physician by training, and that's my day job. But I have also written a series of children's books. It started with Banjo the Gorilla and a chameleon who lost her colors. And so I've started writing those, and so far we have 2 that are published, and hopefully more to come.
Excellent. So, first of all, what gave you the ideas of these stories?
So when I was little, my dad used to tell me stories about the biggest gorilla in the whole jungle, and how he looked really intimidating because he was so big, but he was really the sweetest gorilla in the entire jungle. And every night he would let me pick a different animal to help. And so maybe I would pick a bunny, maybe I would pick a lion, just something different every night. And he would make up something funny that happened to that animal, and then the gorilla would come along and help that animal out of whatever predicament it found itself in.
Wow.
So I remember those stories very fondly from my childhood. And as I grew up and then had a family and COVID hit, we all quarantined together. My daughter at the time was about 3, so about the same age that I was when he started telling me the gorilla stories. And so during COVID, he started telling her those same stories. And she loved them just like I had loved them when I was a child. And so we thought, what if we actually wrote these down and made them into a series of books about this gorilla and all of his adventures in helping animals. And so that's kind of where the stories came from.
That is amazing. Yeah, that's it's so unique. I mean, it's one thing to reminisce on how original stories came to be, from spoken word to written record. But you just don't hear it these days, and especially with your dad just making them up on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
That's a talent in itself. Has did he ever consider writing any of this stuff down?
I don't know that he ever really did, and he's very excited that I have, and he was very much a part when we were writing the stories themselves. He was very much a part of that whole process. I think that he has a creative side that maybe he doesn't even realize that he has. So when we were brainstorming during COVID and writing all of it down, we literally sat down as a family and thought about what animals do we want to pick and what's something that's unique to that animal. So in each story, each book is about a different animal. So you'll see that the first one is chameleon, so it's about a chameleon who lost her colors. And then the second book is a giraffe. Giraffes are known for their very long necks, so it's the giraffe with a crinkled neck. So in every story, it's something very unique to that animal. And then we brainstormed, well, what happened to the animal? How did it happen? What does Banjo try to do to help the animal? We always have a few things that don't work. So kind of teaching that lesson of resilience and perseverance. And then what eventually does work? How do we fix it?
That is awesome. A question that just arose. Is that purple or pink?
I call him Fuchsia.
Fuchsia, okay.
So, yeah, he is a fuchsia colored, I don't know if you can see in the picture, but he is a very cute fuchsia colored gorilla.
How did you settle on that color?
I wanted the colors in the stories to be really bright and grab attention of children. If you look through the illustrations in the books, it's all very colorful. Here's another example. And I just thought that if he's going to be on most every page, the gorilla color just doesn't translate quite as bright and interesting and entertaining as some other color. And I thought that was just a fun, unique color. It would really make him pop and stand out.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
he's a very special guy.
Yes, that is definitely probably the most vibrant color that you're gonna find.
Yeah.
The most exciting whenever it comes to engaging children in these little stories. So you said you just started writing these during COVID.
I did.
Had you been writing anything prior?
I'm not. This was kind of my first foray into writing, and honestly, when I originally wrote them, I wrote them all in prose. So I wrote them as if I was hearing my dad's voice in my head telling me these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I translated that onto the page. And that's actually how we pitched it to publishers and everything. This was all a prose series. We got through illustrations. Again, everything was laid out in prose, and we were getting ready. We were a few weeks away from going to print with Chameleon. And my son, who at that time, he was about 2 or 3, was very into all of these books that rhyme. Little Blue Truck, Gruffalo, Room on the Broom, Good Night Construction Site. And he really enjoyed this. He would ask for those same books every single night, to the point that he had them memorized. He would finish sentences for me. And it was fun for me to read those. You know, when he would pick one of those, I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the cadence and the tempo and the rhyme. And I woke up one night just before Chameleon went to print and thought to myself, what if this was rhymed instead? And I laid there in the middle of the night with my cell phone and I rewrote the entire book in rhyme.
Oh, wow.
I read it to my husband the next day and he liked it, and so I sent an email to my editor and prefaced it, please don't kill me. I have rewritten the book. And it ended up being fine because I literally took it page by page and rewrote each page and each spread to match. And I found that I really liked that writing process. Mm-hmm. So even when we went forward with Giraffe, knowing that we were going to rhyme it as well, we went ahead and did all the illustrations based on the prose. And then I enjoy seeing the pictures that are going to be on the page in front of me as I translate that, just that normal storytelling prose over to a rhymed verse.
Wow. And I mean, writing in itself is very daunting and time consuming, but to get like a verse out of it, the rhymes that's a whole other, ballpark, that's a whole other animal kingdom. Pun intended. Yeah. How long did it take you that night to come up with each new rhyme, each new way to tell the story?
That took from 1 a.m. until the morning.
Oh, wow.
But that was just kind of the first draft. Then there was a lot of revisions and reworking from that point on. Because one thing that I've realized is that when I write something down and I say it back to myself in my head, I know how I want it to come out. And so it may sound correct and the tempo may seem like it works when I read it to myself, but I have to have other people come back and read it behind me that haven't seen it before. They're seeing it fresh on the page for the first time and see where they put the emphasis in the lines and what words they put the emphasis on. And that may change the tempo and the cadence of the lines entirely.
Yeah.
And so I really have to, then you have to sit back and say, okay, well that didn't work with the way that someone else is going to read it, or that someone else interprets it and kind of moves through that part of the verse. And so there's a lot of reworking to make it where, okay, we think that the vast majority of people are going to read this the way that we want it to be read, so that the tempo and the cadence actually works.
Right. You couldn't just let it be like everybody else is wrong.
Right. Well, that's the thing that I realized, that with music, people have a lot more freedom, because once someone records a song and puts it out there, they've kind of created the way that everyone else is going to hear it and sing it.
Right.
Whereas when you're putting it in paper in a book, no one else has any sort of template for how that should be read and where the emphasis should be placed.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's highly considerate of you. Me, if I write something and it's supposed to rhyme, it's like, okay, well, read it however you want. I don't even care. If you do it wrong, if you butcher it, it's okay. Just
It's
sue
on
me.
you.
Yeah, all on you. If you don't understand it, it's your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
All right, and you say you're a physician. Is that what you wanted to do when you were a child? Is that what you wanted to put yourself into?
So growing up, I really wanted to be a vet. I loved animals. We always had animals, and just really had that passion for science and veterinary medicine. And then more toward high school age, I sort of shifted and moved away from wanting to be a vet, more toward being just a people doctor instead. And so went through high school, college, and then obviously on to med school with that intent in mind.
Okay, well that's awesome. I mean, at least you stayed on the medical path. I mean, a lot of people they want to be astronauts and end up working at a gas station, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just to know that there are people out there that have childhood dreams and sort of even if they stem off from the main path, they always seem to find their way back to it. So, how many more stories are coming?
So I've written 12 so far. When I originally sat down and wrote them, we came up with 12. 9 are what I would say are standard stories, and we have 3 that are holiday themed. So we have a Christmas with a narwhal, an Easter with the Easter bunny, and Halloween with a bat. So those are the 3 different animals with the holiday themed stories.
That is amazing. About how long does it take to get everything edited, printed, published, illustrated? How long does that usually take?
So when I first approached my publisher, they said to expect around 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 to 8 months, I'm sorry, from start to finish. No surprise with me being a physician, I'm very type A. So I wanted everything absolutely perfect before we went to print. So it was a bit of a longer process for me. I would say we were closer to the 12 to 18 month range.
Wow.
We did work with Chameleon and Giraffe fairly overlapping because we knew we were putting these out pretty close to each other. Chameleon came out in October of 2022 and Giraffe just came out last week, so in March of 2023. So once we got Chameleon's illustrations finished and we started working on layout for Chameleon, we immediately turned to Giraffe and started working on illustrations for Giraffe. So it wasn't necessarily that Chameleon came out and then a year and a half later Giraffe came out, because we did work on these sort of in tandem.
Oh wow, okay. Will any of the holiday ones be out this year, or are we sort of?
So the probably won't be out this year. If you notice when you read the stories with your kids, in each book we hide little Easter eggs hinting what the next book is going to be. So throughout Chameleon, you'll see Giraffe, and toward the very end of Chameleon, you'll see. Let's see, let's go to this page. You'll see Giraffe running very fast in the background. And then, unfortunately, on the last page of Chameleon, you see that, spoiler alert, that Giraffe has run into that tree and has crinkled his neck. So there are little Easter eggs. Giraffe's on almost every page in Chameleon. And then as we move on to Giraffe, first you see little Easter eggs where Chameleon makes her appearance in the Giraffe book on several pages.
You gotta be looking hard for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you'll see a little camel in Giraffe that makes his appearance on multiple pages. And then at the very end of Giraffe, when he's dancing, you'll notice that he has upside down humps. So the third book in the series is Banjo the Gorilla and the camel with the upside down humps.
Oh.
So every time we write a book, we have to know what the next book is going to be in series so that we can add those little Easter eggs.
That is great. That is awesome.
And those are fun things for kids. I know my kids love to find stuff like that. That they don't expect necessarily to see in the book. And if they've read Chameleon and then they move on to Giraffe, I did a reading last week with a school, and that was one of the first things on the very first page of the giraffe book, they said, "There's Chameleon!" So it's exciting for them too.
That is awesome. I know my niece and nephew, they love Easter eggs in just about anything. You know, if they can see a reference from a previous movie or TV show that they've watched, that is their go-to. That is what they will talk about.
Right.
And so, I mean, Easter eggs, that's a selling point in itself for you. Now, tell me about the illustrator.
So her name is Elena Louise, and she is out of Colorado, and she does beautiful illustrations. My publisher put us together. The way that worked was that the publisher, if I had come to the publisher with an illustrator already, that would have been fine too. But I did not have an illustrator. And so the publisher works with a large number of illustrators to begin with. And what they had me do was they had me glance through just a brief portfolio of all of their illustrators and pick 4 or 5 that seemed to be along the lines of what I was looking for my book.
Right.
Then they had me write a description of Banjo, and with those 4 or 5 illustrators, they asked them to draw a picture of Banjo and what Banjo would look like to them. And I was worried that it was going to be a really tough decision, but Elena made it so easy. I thought that her Banjo was just amazing. I think that he's exactly what I had pictured in my head. And this is one of the first pictures that she ever drew of him. And I love the expression that she creates on all her animals. I think she does amazing work with her animal illustrations. And she adds a lot of fun little details in the stories too.
Yeah, she certainly knows how to convey the emotion, for sure. And yeah, that's something that I was thinking about when you were showing the books earlier. How would you have come to settle on this? I don't really think about all the steps that go into things, and that could be why I give up on so many things so easily, because I'm like, you know what? Just to get here, I don't know if it's worth it. But it could just be me, just very lazy, lay on the couch, I'll take care of it next week. Do you have any other stories in mind aside from the book series?
I did write down a quick book when I was potty training my son. So that would be a potential fun little board book if the Banjo series really takes off and kind of has its own wings, that I could maybe put some time into focusing on a little potty training book.
I mean, as of right now, it seems like you're taking it off really well. It's simply amazing.
Okay.
So tell me, this is a product of you and your dad. What kind of support system did you have aside from him in fulfilling this idea, this creative trait of yours?
My husband has been fantastic. He's definitely the first person I kind of bounce things off of, and he reads every draft 700 times because I make him. But he's been really terrific. My mom reads everything, and then at the beginning when I was floating the idea of, is this even something that is going to have appeal? I reached out to a lot of my friends that all have children around the same ages, kind of that preschool to early elementary school age. And I gave them originally just the prose copies of all of the stories and had them read them to their children and just get feedback. And so I had tons of friends, and I'm very, very appreciative to them, that all read those stories to their kids. And it was fun when they would come back and they would say, they keep asking for more stories. They wanted to hear the stories again the next night and the next night. So that kind of gave me the thumbs up. Okay, it sounds like this has enough interest, at least just in my small little test pool, that I could maybe make it into something that is publishable and has more general appeal.
That's awesome. One question I know I wanted to ask, and I was just about to skim right over it. Do you have a favorite author?
Ooh, children's authors, I would probably say Julia Donaldson. She wrote Gruffalo, Room on the Broom, Gruffalo's Child. She has a laundry list, tons and tons and tons of books that she's written. We've read a lot of them. We have a great library here that we check out all of her books. And I think that she just does such an amazing job of rhyming and creating really interesting, funny, unique stories. They have twists and turns, and just, they're so much fun for the parents to read as well.
What advice would you have to share with the next generation of entrepreneurs, authors, dream seekers?
I think the biggest thing is it's just the perseverance. It is a lot of work publishing a book. I don't think I realized when I decided to jump off this cliff exactly how much work it would be. So to be warned that it's a lot of work. So if it's something that you want to do, commit 100%. I think that they just saying you want to dabble in it and maybe do a little bit off, but that's not going to cut it. It's a lot of work every step of the way, and the type of work changes. So when you're working on the text and the illustrations, or the text and the layout if you're writing an adult book, that's a very different type of work and energy that you're putting into the book than when the book is out there and you're working on selling it and marketing it and drumming up interest for people to purchase it. And it's interesting because it's very different skill sets. So something that, you might be really fantastic at writing and like me really terrible at selling things. and so it's really hard. I mean, I will say for me, this marketing part has been very difficult because it's so out of my normal comfort zone. So, I think just if it's something that you want, be prepared and just commit fully and go for it.
Okay, so aside from working on the other books and just working, what's next for you as an author, physician, a person, mom, wife? What do you have like in the stars lined up for you, as selfishly or as selflessly, that you can think of? What's your next drive?
I think the next thing is really just focusing on getting the next book out. Sitting here saying, oh, let's publish the whole series, that seems so daunting. So I have to break it down into manageable steps. Okay, we've got the first 2 books out. What's the next step? Let's market these, let's get these off the ground so that I can really turn and focus on getting that 3rd book, getting Camel out. I would love to see this kind of take wing and have a following that does want the 3rd book and the 4th book and the 5th book, etc. And so that's what I would really love to see in the future, is that this kind of gains a life of its own and helps self-perpetuate.
And you said draft just dropped.
It did this week.
So you've had your Chameleon book signing. Did Giraffe come with a book signing as well?
He had a sneak peek at the book signing when we did the original launch party for Chameleon, because I actually had Giraffe in. So when we did our big launch party in Birmingham with the O'Neill Library, anybody that came got to hear Giraffe. We did a reading of both books, and they could purchase Giraffe and get a signed copy of that as well.
Oh, awesome. Okay, and I mean, that just word of mouth, that seems like it would be propulsion enough to actually get you where you want to land steady on your feet. And I know that this is gonna reach out further than I can, you can. So I'm actually looking forward to that. I know you said that you're not one to self-market or self-sell, but what is the best marketing strategy at this point to promote one's brand, one's books? Because even if you're not the greatest salesperson, I feel there is something that falls in line to what seems more successful than simply just, this was a good run, I'm out. So what have you seen that works to sell yourself?
I think there's a couple of different facets to that question. I think one, obviously, being face-to-face with people and connecting, and then being able to go home with a signed copy of a book that is, if they have children or grandkids or a friend's child or whatever, that's that's personalized to that child. I think that that's really extra special. And so I noticed that when I go and I'm able to do book signings like in Dothan, or I've done them in Seaside at the beach and places like that here, you definitely get people that weren't necessarily coming in to buy a children's book that day, but because of the opportunity, they walk out with one or two. And so I think that that's unique, but that's hard to scale because there's only one of me.
Right.
And so, and I also, because I'm in a situation where I have a full-time job, I can't go on a 50-state book tour. You know, I can't spend the next year driving around in a van promoting my book and stopping in all the towns and doing all these great book signings. It's just not realistic with my life. So I think that the second thing that in today's world is very strong is social media. So I think that anybody that does something like putting out a book and ignores social media, I think you're just kind of missing the ball. So I'm not a big social media person. I have not been. I don't post my children on social media, and so that basically takes away the vast majority of things that I would potentially post on. So I remember when I started working with my social media guy, he said, "What's your Instagram handle?" And I said, "I don't have Instagram." And he wasn't quite sure how to respond to that. So, you know, definitely I had to create Instagram for myself, for Banjo, and kind of market that way. But for me, it was a little tougher to embrace because that's not kind of my normal sphere. So it's something that you definitely embrace and use, and hopefully social media can pay back huge dividends by being able to spread the word. And kind of, as you mentioned with this platform as well, you know, not just spreading the word locally, but reaching out much more nationally and hopefully even internationally.
Internationally, yes. That's the reach, for sure. What do you want viewers to know that you wish somebody would have told you about taking these big steps, these big opportunities that seem to either fall in front of you or you just kind of snag from the tree? What would you have wanted to know about it?
I think that one thing that I wasn't expecting was how excited I was going to be to actually see them published in print, a real hardcover book, something that I have created. And now that I have it and I've been able to reflect on it a little bit more, how fun it is that, you know, one day my kids will read this to their children and hopefully their grandchildren. It's, even if it doesn't take off and become the next Pete the Cat, which I hope it does, but even if it's something that I just did for my family, how special it's going to be. You know, that Lane and Mac, my two kids, you know, their names are in the book. And so hopefully one day they'll read it to their families, and that will be extra special for them. And hopefully they'll pick that as a first book rather than, you know, Little Blue Truck, because it has a special place in their heart. And so I think that just seeing kind of the far-reaching implications of what this can be further on down the line. But this isn't just here and now, but this is here to stay. You know, these books, they were pertinent 40 years ago when I was little. They're pertinent today. The same themes of kindness, not judging the book by its cover, being resilient, persevering, and loving and helping each other. Those themes are going to be just as pertinent 50 years from now, 100 years from now. So hopefully this will stand the test of time.
Absolutely, and it's definitely something we need these days. I mean, I've seen a lot more of the, not just tolerance between human interaction, but the people who genuinely care about each other versus what we've heard over the past 3 or 4 years about, you know, keeping everybody apart and at odds with each other because somebody said one bad thing or negative thing to start this war. And so I feel like this is even more important now, since it's not judging a book by its cover. It doesn't matter who you are. If you can lend a hand, then lend it. And I feel as if whenever this does take off, it's going to be more important to the vast majority of the adults reading it to their children versus just sort of making a point. And one day when the children do get old enough, they'll see it, and hopefully the world will be a lot kinder because of your words, your ideology, and your books. In the grand scheme of things, what were the greatest trials that you've had to overcome, not only in getting your books out, but adulting, basically?
I think that a big trial is when you're you've created sort of your baby. I've written all these stories, and I'm trying to find a publisher, and you're sending it out to all of these publishers, and you keep getting no after no after no after no, not getting discouraged on that. It was helpful to read that J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter got turned down. I think it was something like, don't quote me on this, but like 8 or 12 times or something. She did not just take off with publishers. She was turned down multiple times too, so that made me feel better. But being someone who has always sort of prided myself in being fairly successful from a professional standpoint, going through college and med school and on to work as a physician. I've sort of just always been able to work really hard at something and have the door open. If you work really hard and you get the grades and you get into med school, you work really hard in med school and you get the grades, then you get into residency. And so it's always, up to now in my life, sort of been, if you just work hard enough, then you'll get there. And so I worked hard on these stories and I thought that they were great. And then to have multiple people say, no, we don't want to publish it, no, we're not interested, great story, we don't want it. That was hard to hear kind of over and over and over again. And then I found a great publisher that sort of got what I was saying, and it's been a great ride since then.
That's awesome.
That was definitely an interesting trial.
Okay. Well, I believe the number one human fear, aside from death, is rejection. And that is something that that just seems to hang over us because we do know what we're putting forth and what other people are shutting down. So that is a good lesson.
I'm Ashlee Fulmer, and I have written the book Banjo the Gorilla and the Chameleon Who Lost Her Colors, and also the book Banjo the Gorilla and the Giraffe with a Crinkled Neck. And the website, it's on the back of the books too, is www.banjothegorilla.com. And on that website, you will have links to buying any of these books. You can buy them through the publisher who's Mascot. You can buy them on Amazon, on Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. All of those links are on the website to make it easy to just go and click. You can also go to any of those websites and just type in Banjo the Gorilla, and luckily it's specific enough that it will pull up these 2 books for you right off the bat. You can click and order. Another thing that you'll find on the website is some information about Banjo's mission. So just like Banjo is dedicated to helping animals, we feel an obligation and a calling to do the same. So a portion of our profits from Banjo will go toward wildlife care and rescue organizations. And so there's some information on the website about that as well. The illustrator is Elena Louise, and there is a little section on the website that's about the author and about the illustrator. And there's a link to her website as well from mine.
Awesome.
Banjo the Gorilla is kind and big and tall. He loves each jungle animal. He befriends them all. From nose to toes, he's 6 feet tall and weighs 500 pounds. He may look scary, but he's not. He's the sweetest ape around. Jogging through the jungle, Banjo saw a puzzling sight. A little sad chameleon. She didn't look quite right. What happened here? Banjo asked, voicing his concern. Chameleon told her story, and this is what he learned. We'll read one more page. The Jumping Jungle Ice Cream Party was quite a sight to see. My coconut ice cream was as yummy as can be. I lay down for a quick nap and I didn't sleep too long, but when I woke, to my surprise, my colors were all gone.
Oh no.
Yeah. And all of the books start out the exact same. So they all start out talking about Banjo the Gorilla is kind and big and strong and tall. He loves each jungle animal. He befriends them all. From nose to toes, he's 6 feet tall and weighs 500 pounds. He may look scary, but he's not. He's the sweetest ape around. One hot and steamy morning, Banjo heard a great big whoomp. What made the jungle rumble with a massive thundering thump? He thought a friend might need his help. He quickly ran to check. Then Banjo saw a young giraffe with a very crinkled neck. What happened here? Banjo asked, scratching his large head. Giraffe began his story, and this is what he said. I am the tallest animal, my legs are very long. I love to sprint and proudly sing my speedy running song. Dashing through the jungle on this bright and sunny day, singing loud, I didn't spot that big tree in my way. I ran headfirst into that tree with a dreadful, awful splat. My neck was long, but now it's short. Banjo, can you help with that? Banjo hugged the young giraffe. No need to feel dejected. I haven't met a problem yet that cannot be corrected.
Yeah, so great to meet you
Good to
again.
meet you too.